Welcome to another staff car update on the channel. This is Ortega's. As you might know, it is the second F150 Lightning Lariat pickup truck that I have owned. The first one, unfortunately, was written off earlier this year after an unfortunate incident during some heavy ice and snow. But the last time this truck was on the channel, we had an issue with the moonroof, or rather, specifically the panoramic tilt and slide mechanism that allows the roof of this truck to open up in nice weather. It was broken. We've got an update on that. We've got an update on Ford's home integration system. While we've been able to save a sizable amount of money on our electricity bill in the last couple of months, thanks to that system, it's still not working properly. And then I'm going to show you how we plan on expanding this truck's already massive luggage carrying capabilities so that the entire team can head up to everything electric in just 2 weeks' time. So, the last time I was here with this truck, I showed you there was an issue with this sunroof. The problem was that the mechanism wasn't properly operating. You could open it and the tilt portion of the tilt and slide sunroof would pop up, but then it wouldn't go down. Initially, you could convince it to go down if you drove fast enough. It gave the motor just enough extra support to retract into the roof, and then it stopped working completely. So it went back to our local Ford dealership, who did a complimentary pickup and drop-off service, and it got fixed in just about 24 hours. We've got 2 new motors in the sunroof. That seems to have fixed the problem. Everyone who has owned any F150 of any fuel type, whether it's electric or gasoline, says that these panoramic tilt and slide sunroofs are probably one of the worst features of the F150 family. They are notorious. They constantly go wrong. If you are in the market for an F150 Lightning and you don't want a sunroof, it might be worth not speccing it. Of course, the other option is not to use it at all, which we generally try not to do. But because we wanted an extended range truck with Blue Cruise capabilities, the roof came as standard on this particular variant of the F150 Lightning. Normally, we use the sunshade and pull it all the way across so that we don't actually use the sunroof, but when we're using this vehicle as a chase car for rolling shots or chase car shots, we have to actually retract the blind fully so that we can use a suction cup on the fixed portion of the glass roof so that Michael can sit in the back seat and operate the camera properly. So that's how we discovered that particular problem, and that, to those who were asking, is how we needed it to be fixed again. I would love to never use it, but unfortunately we do from time to time. Thankfully though, it's behaved itself perfectly ever since, and we've no other complaints. While I'm here, let's talk about the latest software update that Ford has just rolled to this truck via over-the-air. It's a special update that's designed to change how future over-the-air updates take place. And it's particularly important for us because we live out here in a rural location where the cellular connectivity can sometimes be a problem, and where our internet connection to our home can also sometimes be sporadic. Previously, Ford tried to shove as much data to vehicles as possible using over-the-air updates, and it had a fairly large packet size. In other words, the data was put into packets that were sent one after the other. Large amounts of data. The problem is that those larger packet sizes were causing updates to fail, because if there was an issue with a particular chunk of data being sent, then the whole update failed. And so what Ford has done, and I'm trying to explain this in non-technical terms, I know there are those of you who are watching who are tech nerds and going, she's explaining it not particularly well, but the data that gets sent is now being chopped up into smaller pieces so that the chunk size is smaller for every bit of data that Ford is sending, which makes it easier for the truck to go, hey, I didn't get that last bit, can you send it again? And it also means there's less chance that an over-the-air update is going to go wrong, brick the truck, or do anything else. So that's the latest update, and fingers crossed that should make it easier for Ford to push further over-the-air updates down the line, which is particularly important, as I will tell you in a second, when it comes to our home integration system. As you know, one of the killer features of the F150 Lightning when it came out was its ability to power your home in a power cut if you purchased the Ford home integration system. Now, the Ford home integration system is separate and different from the truck. You have to buy it separately. When the F150 Lightning was brand new in 2022, if you bought one of the higher spec extended range models, you got a Ford Pro charging station with your truck. It was free of charge and it would arrive in the mail, or sometimes it would be with the truck when you picked it up at the dealer. That is a charging station that is capable of charging the truck at up to 80 amps, single phase. Not everybody has that much power available on their electrical breaker, so it can be turned down. But that charging station is also capable of pulling DC power out of the truck using the large connectors that you normally use for CCS fast charging. So instead of putting power into the battery pack, it's pulling power out of the battery pack, and it pulls DC power out of the battery pack and puts it into a separate piece of hardware that is part of the home integration system. It's a separate off-board inverter that can then turn that DC 400 volt power into AC power to power appliances in your home. So far, so good. And that system is about $9,000, $10,000 installed and put on the side of your house, as long as your install is not particularly complicated. I've had this system for as long as I've had an F150 Lightning, and if you watch the videos on this channel with my old truck, you'll know that it was very problematic. It was very hit and miss. For a while I thought it was something to do with cellular connectivity, and then it transpired that it was actually an issue with Bluetooth. And that's because while the charging station physically plugs into the truck, the communication from the Ford home integration system to tell the truck to start providing power happens over Bluetooth. Bluetooth is not always the most reliable communication protocol, and there's a Bluetooth module in the charging station just on that wall there, and the receiver for it sits behind the rear right seat in the cab, which is completely the opposite end of the truck to where the charge port door is, which is on the left-hand side of the truck, just in front of the driver's door, effectively on the driver's door A-pillar. So far, so good. Well, when we picked this truck up, the home integration system has been far more reliable. It has noticed when there's been a power cut, and as we've covered in previous videos, if there has been a problem, which there has been sometimes, you just have to power cycle the stuff that sits on the side of your house, and then eventually everything works. Well, in the last couple of months, we've heard rumours and complaints from other F150 Lightning owners with home integration systems that have said, if the truck is off but plugged in, and it's been sat there for a day or so, and the power goes out, the truck doesn't always wake up and start powering the home. And it turns out there is another bug in the software, which means if this truck is in deep sleep mode, which is effectively a power saving mode, not to protect the main traction battery, but rather to ensure the 12 volt battery doesn't run out, the truck doesn't actually ever wake up and respond when the charging station goes, hey, there's been a power cut, please start providing power. And the workaround right now is to unplug everything, to power the truck on, wait for about 10 minutes, then plug everything back in. If the truck has still got power on, it will then go, oh, there's a power cut, and start providing power. Now that's better than what we previously had, which was sometimes you couldn't get the two things to communicate. But Ford is aware of the issue, and there are rumours on the grapevine, although I've not been able to confirm it with anybody at Ford, that a new update, which will be made possible by the update I just told you about with the smaller data chunks, will finally be pushed to all the vehicles and make it easier for the truck to keep that Bluetooth module awake so that if power goes out and the charging station and the home integration system goes, hey, there's no power, please start providing power, the truck will actually wake up and turn on. Now, I have mixed opinions about this, and Ford was the first company to market with a vehicle-to-home system for its vehicles. And for that, yes, bleeding edge, you are going to get cut, as it were. At the same point, though, Ford's had 2 years to try and sort this out. Sunrun, Siemens, and Delta, who are the 3 companies that have worked with Ford on this system, they've all got their own separate systems, they've all got their own separate communications, and it's a bit of a metaphorical dog's dinner right now. I hope that Ford solves it, because when this does work, it works perfectly. Which brings me to how I've saved money this month and the previous month. Here in Portland, Oregon, we have a local utility that runs what it calls peak time energy events. When it's really hot weather or really cold weather, and it's expected that people will be using more power than they normally would, instead of turning on a peaker power plant, our local utility now reaches out to people with static battery packs and says, hey, will you start providing power to the grid? Or sends emails to customers who are enrolled in the program going, there's a peak power event, please use less electricity. And for every kilowatt hour of electricity that you do not use compared to your normal usage period for this time in a day, we will give you $1. So in July, we had, I think, 2 or 3 peak power events. And so far in August, we've had 2 peak power events. And during all of those events, after doing the little turning the truck on and plugging it in and telling the system manually to start transferring power, I've been able to run my house off the truck. So it now actually does provide power to the home for 3-4 hours during that peak power event. And in our last electricity bill, instead of getting a bill for $260, which is what we would have got had we not taken part in the program, we got a utility bill for $200. So we saved ourselves $60 over the last couple of months. And that's not something to be sneezed at. I'm really pleased and proud about how that's worked. And looking forward, I think in the winter, I'd love to make use of that same program again. I just hope, fingers crossed, that by the time we get the winter windstorms, the winter snowstorms, this truck and this charging station actually agree on when the power is out, so that when power cuts happen, traditionally up here they happen in the middle of the night, I don't wake up at 2 in the morning and discover that the power's gone out and we haven't had power for a couple of hours. So let's see what happens. Anyway, let's talk about everything electric and how we plan on getting all of our gear there. And for that, I'll meet you at the back of the truck. Of course, we didn't just buy our F150 Lightning because we wanted backup power for our home. We could have just bought some static battery packs and shoved them on the side of the house. We also bought the F150 Lightning so that we can film roller shots or chase shots for our channel safely, because hanging out the back of a car is a bit of a sketch move, especially when there's lots of local law enforcement types rolling around. But we also wanted to be able to carry stuff. Now, normally when we do an event, the entire back end of this truck is filled with camera gear and luggage and equipment. And that's just when we want to go to like a press launch event. So when we went up to the Ford Marquee Rally event up in Seattle, the back of the truck was full of camera gear. When we have driven across the country and we've towed things, the back of this truck has been full of filming gear and camping gear and food prep stuff and all of that. When we go to Everything Electric in 2 weeks' time in Vancouver, Canada, we realised this year we're going to be carrying more than we've ever carried before. First of all, instead of there just being 2 or 3 of us going, there's actually 5 of us going this year. And secondly, thanks to one of our wonderful supporters who happens to run a print shop, this year we have a proper stage. We've got backdrops, we've got extra lighting, we've got a new television that I literally today just picked up that we'll be using to display our show reel on. Believe it or not, I picked it up for $200 and it's a $2,000 TV that was put in a bank that never opened. And so the person who put it in the bank was paid to take it out. They gave him the TVs and he's now selling them locally used. Basically, in as new condition. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, that's all got to go in the back of the truck. We've also got all of the camera gear as well, plus all of the extra luggage for all of the other people who are going to be joining us. Now, we've got the front space, which is primarily going to be for our clothes and stuff like that. The rear is going to be for all of the heavy stage equipment that we can't put anywhere else. And then the camera gear, one sec. It's a Time Out Ion motorcycle trailer. It's a really fancy one. It's got carpet inside. It's got a light. It's full lights and it's fully registered and all that good stuff. We bought this back in 2019, before COVID, when I still owned my little red Chevrolet Bolt EV, the one that we drove all the way to Texas and back for the first fully charged live that was ever held in North America. This trailer has helped us put loads of stuff in it and carry loads of stuff behind my Chevrolet Bolt EV. It basically almost tripled the load carrying capability of that very useful little hatchback. And when I realized that we were taking so much stuff to Everything Electric in Vancouver, I was like, you know, I still have that trailer. And for some reason, I was going to sell it earlier this year, but fate stepped in and told me not to, and now I know why. I need to put a new wiring loom on it. I need to do some work on the wires and the lights because this hasn't been used for a couple of years. It's been sat over there next to the greenhouse, but it's going to be back in use for Everything Electric. Still opens, it's still got a proper weather seal. The tyres have been given a full bill of health, and that's going to hold most of our camera gear, and it's going to sit behind our F150 Lightning like the world's smallest tow-behind snail. And I've towed with it, with the truck. It is comical. Not only does the truck not really know that there's a trailer attached, even though it knows there's a trailer attached, it doesn't really impact range at all. And in order to make sure I don't do anything stupid while driving it, I have to remember to keep the rear view camera up at all times, because otherwise I forget that I have a little tiny snail behind me. So we'll be doing that and putting a little sticky on the dashboard to remind me when we're driving to Canada that I am actually towing. But while this will handle our camera gear, and this will handle a lot of the large things, there are some things we're taking to Everything Electric that won't fit in here because the bed is too short, or in here because this is too small. And for that, I'm going to need some help from a Rhino, which is the final part of today's video. And when I say Rhino, I mean Rhino Rack. These guys, with a nicely printed instruction sheet that Sky, my youngest border collie, decided needed some investigation while I was away on a recent press launch event. Thanks, Sky. Because when we fitted the tonneau cover to this truck, we purchased a tonneau cover with rails. The T-slot rail system is what they call it. We can actually now install roof rack bars on top of the bed cover that allow us to carry more luggage. And I spent a couple of weeks looking for a good solution, and thanks to the folks at the Ford F150 Lightning Owners Forum, I found somebody else who had installed the Rhino Rack system, and they only had good things to say about it. We don't need to carry anything heavy on the top, basically a foldable table and maybe a few cases, but it will be adequate enough to allow us to get everything to Vancouver and back without requiring us to take a third car. We're already taking 2 vehicles. We'd rather not take a third. While I did look at alternatives for the T-rail system, this was by far the most affordable. I went to a local Rack Attack just down the road from me, and I was quoted over $1,000 for both the Thule system and also the Yakima system. And this is about $500, and it comes with everything you need. So you get these little square nuts that go into the T-rack system, and then these little Allen bolts screw into it and hold the towers in place, and then the actual units themselves pop in like that, and you get a key, and it all stays nice and secure I'm not going to do an install video, but we're going to do a little time lapse showing me put them in, and then we'll talk about the actual rails when they're on the vehicle. The cool thing about this system from Rhino Rack, like many modern rack systems for cars and trucks, is that you may not want to keep the bars on all the time. And with an EV, there's an aerodynamic problem with doing that. Specifically, you'll go less far per charge. So what Rhino Rack has done with these little towers is there are these little clips. I can find the other one. These little clips go over your towers. So once you've actually measured where the towers go, the towers live on your truck at all times. But when you actually want to put the rails on, it just attaches really easily. And I can show you that with this. So you get a key in your kit that allows you to unlock this system. And then there are these two red clamps, and they literally, obviously they go the other way round because the rack goes this way, but they allow you to easily and quickly attach the rack to your vehicle. Imagine the rail coming across, and then when you're done with it, you unlock the cover, pull those two levers, and you're done. It also means you can keep your rack somewhere nice so it doesn't get messed up, and when you need it, it's ready and available. There you have it. Thanks to Michael for helping cut the rubber. You get a rubber strip for weather sealing on the top. Obviously, this is also a T-slot system. So everything on this rack is a T-slot system. The T-slot for the actual side of the truck, then the T-slot for the actual tower, and then the T-slot for the rack itself. And you can buy everything like bike carriers, snowboard carriers and stuff and put on top of this. We're just going to use what we already have, which is an old-fashioned luggage rack, and then we'll also strap our nice long table on here as well, which means we don't have to keep the tailgate down when we're driving to Canada, and also it means we can have the tonneau cover closed and not get everything inside the back of the truck absolutely drenched. It still gets wet inside here, but much less than it would if it was sit here open. So I think that was a success. We didn't have any issues installing it. These bars are the shortest length that you can get away with. You can buy longer bars. I think these are the 60-inch and you can get 72 inches. But as you see, the end of the bars very nicely ties up with the edge of the Retrax tonneau cover here. So it works really well. It's nice and sturdy. There is a little bit of bow here, but this is rated to carry like 100-ish, 200 pounds. So we shouldn't have any issues. We're not going to put anything super heavy on here. And it just means that we have that extra luggage carrying capability when we need it. And when we don't need it, we can just use these keys, unlock the racks from the towers, put the tower caps in place, and Bob's your aunt. It works incredibly well. Charlie apparently took offense to that. Too woke for my own chicken. Anyway, thanks for joining me. There will be more videos coming out as we prepare for everything electric. And keep your eyes posted for videos from our trip to Southern California recently, where we got to drive the Volvo EX90. I can't say anything about it yet because I'm under embargo, but there's a walk around. If it hasn't already dropped, it will very soon, and I'll see you soon.
Thanks for joining me today, and if you've got thoughts, make sure you leave them below in our Discord chat room, or you can reach out to us on Mastodon. Thanks to the amazing list of people scrolling by on your screen right now. They are some of more than the 1,500 people who help fund this channel through Patreon and YouTube, covering our bills, paying our team, and making sure that we can remain 100% independent. And if you'd like to join them and see your name listed here, just follow the links below. There are a range of different tiers you can sign up for from as little as $1 a month, or if you pay yearly, just under $11 a year. A huge welcome to our newest supporters: Olke Ward, John Le Pouvoir, World's Tallest Hobbit, John Hendricks, John Franks, Bill Lascelle, Bill Warren, Brian Curry, Amory Wong, Chris Foon, Stephen Tidy, Christian H, Mike Cooper, Casey Chapin, James Carter, Sam Yates, Kai Preshaw, Michael Ball, John Dunlop, Christian Ramusen, Matt Bullock, Karen and Jude, Mike Whirl, and Daniel. To join the list and get your shout out, become a paid Patreon member for your moment of fame. If you'd like to support us with a one-off donation, you'll find links below to make Ko-fi and Bitcoin donations, and we even have an old-fashioned PO box you can reach us at. Address also below. And if you're in need of some swag, you'll find our swag store in the down below too. This month we've got a new special t-shirt just for our trip to Everything Electric in Canada next month. There's still just enough time to buy one before the event, and if you wear it to the show, you might get a special something from us. We've got some great content coming up, so make sure you're subscribed on PeerTube or YouTube, and we'll see you soon. We make new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you want more, the mighty algorithm thinks you'll like this video, but we think that this one is also well worth a look. See you soon, and as always, keep evolving.